Day one of 49ers training camp is officially in the books, and we got a lot of stuff out of training camp today, a lot of things to talk about, and I am looking forward into getting into it all and discussing some of the biggest takeaways from training camp. John and Kyle's basically opening presser of the season, kind of the injuries and some of the stuff to come out of the press conferences with Kittle, with Bosa, just kind of reacting to the vibes, being back, and 49ers football just right here in front of us. So I'm super excited to talk about it. Drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button. Let's get after it all right. Yeah. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Ooh, it feels good to be back in the saddle. Not gonna lie, doing some press conference work, listening and getting all the updates out kind of gets the juices flowing again. It's like we're back. We're back, baby. And it's really cool because obviously there are a lot of things that actually happened today. So we have stuff to talk about. We have stuff to react to. We've got stuff to ponder. Question. Hmm. Anyways, let's get into it all. Shout out to all the SDS hopping in. I know you guys are just like me. You have been waiting for training camp to get back, and we're here. We're here. We made it. Congratulations. A round of applause is in order for every single one of you who has survived one of the more difficult off seasons in recent memory. And hey, that's saying a lot considering from a fan perspective, these off seasons, the last couple years, been a little brutal. So again, there's some fortitude there. There's some ability to withstand some adversity. Shout out to all of you guys, man. We made it to another year of 49ers football. Hey, we understand. I feel like it doesn't need to be said, but I see these comments all the time about, oh, nothing matters because we haven't won the Super Bowl. Listen, I get it. We all want the ultimate prize. That's what the entire purpose of it all is. We're not going to sit here and sugarcoat and say that, hey, we're here for moral victories. We are here for, just having a good old time. We are a franchise that represents excellence. The San Francisco 49ers are a fan base that represents winning. And so I get it. You guys were chomping at the bit. We've had these conversations so many times. But again, there's something about the chase, something about the process that it's hard not to get romantic about. I get it. It's been challenging. It's been tough. It hasn't turned out exactly how we have wanted it. But in the end, when you take a step back, it's been a hell of a lot of fun. The process of it, we're one step away from actually realizing our ultimate goal. And we get it. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be tough. We're going to have injuries. We're going to deal with adversity. That's what football is. That's why I love it. It's why I can't shake it. It's why I can't, no matter, even when I try to separate, I could always come back to San Francisco 49ers football. Something about it makes me happy, crazy, all at the same time. And today was just a reminder that we are back in the saddle and we are going to be having 49ers practices kick off here pretty soon. So I do believe they will have a practice tomorrow. However, I don't believe it is open to media or fans. I could be wrong there, but this is so far the way I'm understanding it. I don't believe there's practice open for us to get anything from it. But I do know for a fact that I will be back in Santa Clara on Thursday for the first day of open training camp practice. Boots on the ground, eyes on. Woo! Woo! Let's go. Football. I can't wait. Can't wait to smell that grass. Smell the fresh paint on the field. See all the equipment. See who's going to be first out. Who's going to be first out? Is it going to be Talanoa Hufanga? Talanoa Hufanga actually kind of got his toes stepped on for being first out to training camp every day last year by rookie Jair Brown. Is that a sign that Jair Brown is destined for great things? Because as we know, ever since Talanoa Hufanga showed up for the San Francisco 49ers, he was the first guy out of practice every day like clockwork at 49ers training camp since he's been drafted until Jair Brown came along. And then Jair Brown's like, you know what? I bet I can beat you out there. But I love it. It was always those two guys were the first two guys out. And so obviously kind of transitioning into some of our injury updates with the San Francisco 49ers, obviously we want to know when Huff is going to be back. I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm kind of in the boat of, is just really wanting to see Huff back in action. Now, I don't personally know how long Huff will be on the PUP list. He's starting on the PUP along with Drake Jackson and Drake Greenlaw. But man, I want to see him back out there. I had the opportunity to do one-on-one interview with Huff at the Super Bowl. He because of his injury, he didn't have a podium. He didn't have a table. He was just kind of floating. And I'm like, my guy Huff was good. We chopped it up. And I mean, you talk about humble spirit. You talk about a guy who's genuine and just a cool cat. It's hard not to root for Talanoa Hufanga. I'm rooting. I'm biased. I'm a biased Talanoa Hufanga supporter. I admit it. I do want to see Talanoa Hufanga bounce back, be able to come back from the injury, and be able to develop a tandem with, of course, Jair Brown alongside of him. But until then, that's going to be one of the main things that we're looking for. That I'm going to be looking for on the defensive side of training camp. Who's going to fill in for Talanoa Hufanga? Is it George Odom? Could we see Malik Mustafa, fourth-round rookie out of Wake Forest? Could he insert himself early in training camp? That's a huge opportunity for a rookie. Huge opportunity. So I'm excited to see that. George Odom, guys like Jalen Mahoney. Don't sleep on Taylor Hawkins. Taylor Hawkins heading into year 3 could be a massive sleeper. Like he's a sleeper for sure. But Taylor Hawkins, don't sleep on him. Of course, you got Eric Harris as well. So we'll see what the ramifications are with that situation moving forward. But, tough to hear Drake Jackson is going to be starting on the PUP. Just, we had the knee surgery, not getting right, unfortunately. Don't know what the timetable for return for Drake Jackson is. That's a guy that you definitely want to get the most reps possible. So we shall see. I see some questions about Brandon Aiyuk. We'll get to Aiyuk here in a second. I haven't touched on that topic, so stay tuned. We'll get through some of the injuries, and then we will shift gears to probably the biggest story of the day. But Drake Greenlaw starts on PUP, and Ricky Pearsall. We finally got a solidified update on Pearsall. He has a hamstring injury and is expected to miss the first 3 or 4 practices of training camp. So, not the start, right, that I think we all wanted to see from the first round rookie out of Florida. With kind of Brandon Aiyuk's status up in the air, and like I said, we'll get to that in a second. It felt like there could have been some ample opportunities for Pearsall to get into the rotation, running with the ones early in training camp. Well, unfortunately, with the hamstring injury, he will be sidelined for maybe the first week or so. So, we got some news. Oh, you're gonna like this update. Stick around as we transition. But it is confirmed Ricky Pearsall hamstring. So you got the soft tissue injury, and the hope is we get him out there and we can see what happened. We got a lot of questions in the chat today. I got you. You came to the right spot. Your questions will get answered. If you didn't see it, I assumed everyone had saw it at this point. And we got my guy. Hey, I get it. You guys are busy. My guy's got his hand full. I see two kiddos, probably working 60 hours a week. I get it. So that's why you come to this channel. We'll update you on everything that's going on. Brandon Aiyuk officially reported today to San Francisco 49ers training camp. Yes. Now, I think the distinction needs there's a little bit of a distinction. When John Lynch was asked if Brandon Aiyuk was reporting, he didn't give an answer. So it was reported by Ian Rappaport earlier this morning that Aiyuk was going to be in the building. John Lynch didn't confirm, and again, I understand why, because he didn't know. He said we'll find out later in the day. And then I saw it was Nick Wagner of ESPN who put out the official, like a referee with a whistle, boop boop. Reminds me of my guy Chuck over there, Chuck's Flavor Train. Shout out my guy. Brandon Aiyuk is officially in the building. So we, as it stands right now with BA, we are officially holding in. So that to me is the best case scenario, in my opinion. And now we still have to see if Brandon Aiyuk will be able to go, if he'll practice. What I do anticipate at minimum is Brandon Aiyuk's going to be a part of every meeting. He's going to be a part of every team activity. He's going to be present. We just don't know what his participation will be like until we get out there in training camp. So that's going to be one of the very first things that we're looking for is Brandon Aiyuk going to be available for training camp practice, or will he be off to the side while they continue to manage the business side of it at a different time? That's kind of the question that we are up against with Brandon Aiyuk. John Lynch was asked about that, and he said that he expects all players to practice. So, putting a little bit of pressure on BA, but I do think that this was the best decision. I understand where BA is standing in this situation. I can understand the frustration on his end on this situation. I mean, you even had George Kittle talk about like how painful these contract negotiations are that multiple players have to go through. And again, he likened it to getting braces. He's like, these contract negotiations are like getting braces. At least that's what Richard Sherman had told him back in the day when he was going through it. He's like, every second of it sucks until you get them off. And then luckily at the end of it, there's a nice big bag of money waiting for you. But until then, it sucks and it's terrible. And I think as fans on the outside looking in, you can rationalize that, yeah, contract negotiations don't look like any fun. Now, obviously, the outcome is fun of getting paid, but the process, it seems like an awful one. So not only did we get BA showing up and it officially being confirmed, that was great. Oh, hey, yo, I got to refresh my browser. Hold on 1 second. We did hear, obviously, I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spent upwards of like, I think 7 minutes answering questions on Brandon Aiyuk. And one of the quotes that came out of this from John Lynch was, "We fully intend on Brandon Aiyuk being a Niner." I'll play a little clip. Let me know if you can or cannot hear it. Here we go.
We started this really early. We made it a priority to try to get done. We've had excellent communication throughout. Really don't want to characterize. We haven't been able to, and that's a shame. But we're Brandon's a big part of our team, and we expect that he will be this year.
Is there a possibility that you do some sort of restructuring like you did with Raheem Mostert back in the past?
Everything's a possibility. We not gonna get into negotiations, and there's, as Kyle says, there's no absolutes. So we're open to anything, and like I said, Brandon's a big part of this team, and we expect that he will be going forward.
John, do you know yet whether he'll practice once he reports, or whether
we expect all our players to practice? We've had great.
So you heard it right there. Expects all players to practice, but as you can see, I've listened to many a GM speak on player negotiations, player moves, potential trades, et cetera, et cetera. So I've picked up enough to understand that, when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to uncertainties about players' futures, one thing that a general manager isn't going to do is likely going to speak in absolutes. You get more open-ended questions, you get more open-ended type of commentary because they don't want to get pigeonholed into saying something that they regret later on. So I get it. I understand it from that point. So they asked, is Brandon Aiyuk going to be on this team? And they're like, we expect him to. Like, is he going to get traded? He's like, never say never. Essentially, it's not exactly what he said, but basically, anything's possible. So he didn't shut down anything. He didn't really. It was positive in the sense of what he had to say about Brandon and what the hopes were for everything moving forward. But there wasn't any like crystal clear, like, yeah, BA is playing for this year, and then we don't know. I still think it's very much so in that discussion phase. So hopefully with him being in the building, maybe those conversations kick up a little bit more. That allows this to move more towards a contract negotiation. We'll find out. We'll see what ultimately happens. But the good thing is BA is in the building, and hopefully that means that we can get something done with him in the future. So again, big news. Brandon Aiyuk in the building. I'm curious. I asked my folks on Instagram like to predict what's going to happen, because again, I believe that Brandon Aiyuk showing up, it just feels good. Like the energy, it feels good. Like we wanted that. It makes us feel a little bit more at ease with the situation. Obviously, having zero control over any of it, but I'm just curious, as someone who I guarantee all of you have been paying attention to what's been going on with Brandon Aiyuk, what would you predict the ultimate outcome to be? Is it Brandon Aiyuk playing on the 5th-year option? Do you think he's going to get the extension? Do you think that, like, what do you anticipate? Now, clearly we jumped one hurdle. It doesn't sound like the 49ers are interested in trading Brandon Aiyuk. It doesn't even sound like any teams that maybe were interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk would even give a package that would even make the 49ers think twice about it. So it just doesn't sound like anything is going to move in regards to that. So we shall we'll it's it's a process. Michael Moody said, "What I found interesting is Lynch saying the communication has been good, but we heard they weren't talking." Yeah, like I said, I would love to be a fly on the wall in these situations, and to really understand, because we don't know it really at the end of the day. Um, but yeah, it'll be fascinating. Crusher says fair price for BA is 23, 25 at most. Ugh, I disagree. Full stop disagree with that. That's a fair price for the 49ers. Yeah, absolutely. That's a steal. Getting BA at 23, whoo! That's a steal for the San Francisco 49ers. That ain't happening. What did Amari Cooper signed a restructured contract today, guaranteeing, I might be misspeaking, but from what I saw, guaranteeing 20 million plus a $5 million tack on to his contract. So from my understanding, again, I glanced at it, but theoretically speaking, that would have him in the range of 25, right? 25. Um, so and when you looked at Amari Cooper's numbers, touchdowns and receptions were both lower than Brandon Aiyuk last season. Cooper is obviously older than Aiyuk, so you have that aspect of it. So I do think that the absolute floor is 25. The absolute floor. And I don't even think that's the floor, because if you've been listening to me talk about the situation for the entirety of the offseason, I've said 26 to 28 was the sweet spot. Now, because of the inflation of the market, that pushes the number way closer to 28 than 26. So I don't know. Is it 28? Is it 30? Is it guaranteed? Does the guarantees have to match? I would say Waddle is kind of the baseline in the guaranteed money. The per year on average, you can fudge those numbers with dummy years on the back end of the deal. So I'm less concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the guaranteed money. Is it over 70 mil? That's where I'm in, because I do think that Aiyuk would have accepted a number lower than 70 if it got done before those guys got paid. But I think because they got paid, it changed the market a little bit. And I would have to imagine that Aiyuk is looking for north of 70 guaranteed. Yes, you would like to get the per year average at 28 to 30. But I do believe that we are kind of looking at that kind of trajectory. So we'll see. I don't think 23 is fair, and I don't think 25 even gets it done. So we'll see. We'll see. Tony says BA wants 70 to 80 or 77 to 80. 77, I would say, would be a win for BA, just based on some of the contracts that I've seen. I would say 77 will be a win. I think, and then this is completely off of memory, I think Waddle was 72, 73 million guaranteed. So I saw that deal and I was like, that looks like the deal he wants, like he would probably want to beat. You'd probably want to beat Waddle in that particular standpoint. So we heard 26. I heard other figures. I've heard other figures. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that all plays out. But on the brighter side of things, he's in the building. He's in the building. Let's see. Hey, I think this is a good compromise. Pay BA 30 million, and he has to stand on the star at the 50 in the Dallas Stadium. I'm down with that. I'm down with that for sure. I think that's a fair compromise. I would love to see BA here for the long term, so I'd love to see that deal get done. But again, we'll have to see what happens in the long run. One of the non-football crazy important stories of the day, more on the lighter side of things, was no mustache for Kyle Shanahan. You know what, Kyle? I'm a little disappointed. I was really hoping to see the stash in full effect. I was really hoping that we were going to pull up to training camp and we're going to see the Shanna stash in all its glory. I think that we potentially might need to start the Shanna stash campaign to try to get it back for maybe one game this regular season. You know, Kyle Shanahan, he gets superstitious. Like he wore the same hat. I think what year was that? In like 2019, like he wore the same hat. And I'm like, well, Shanny, dog, like what if you rock the stash week 1? And what if you guys win? And then the deal is you can't get rid of the stash until we lose. I just let that thing go, man. I want to see it. I want to see it happen. But he did say he felt like it would be a distraction. Nah, that's a good distraction. Those are the kinds of distractions that I welcome. You know, cheeky shenanigans. You know, not cruel shenanigans. We want the fun shenanigans, and those are fun shenanigans. Oh, I've tried to make a Super Troopers reference. It might be hitting. It might be going completely over your head. I have no idea. I don't care. Bring back the stash. Someone who showed up with a killer stash today, potentially looking like he could be in Super Troopers, is Nick Bosa. I think it looks phenomenal. Right now, he's carrying the torch and just really holding it down for the facial hair crew. Obviously, here on this channel, we're big fans of the facial hair. So if you can rock it, do it. Yeah, bring it out. Beard loading, stash loading, load it up, get it going. All that good stuff. But from today's, I would say those were kind of like the most pertinent things. That I thought of today. Any other things from today that you want me to touch on? Drop it in the chat. I'll keep an eye out for any topics that maybe I didn't discuss from today's opening press conferences. Well, obviously, we heard from Kittle. We heard from Bosa. Kittle lost a lot of weight. Kittle's putting back on weight. That was one of the stories to come out of it. Yeah, for the most part. Kirk says, going off your last video about overlooked players, were you worried last year when you found out in 2022, was I worried? Yeah, initially I was terrified. Um, I was terrified that Jimmy went down until I watched the tape. And I'll never forget, it was one of my it's my still to this day my favorite film breakdown. And to this day, uh I'd never like had like I'd never have like freaked out watching 49ers tape back. I remember where I was. You know, I have to typically break down film when I'm done posting. So I can't get to film when basically from 6 to 10, 6 a.m. in the morning to 10 is kind of been my schedule. It's kind of when I'm working, kind of when I'm creating content, kind of when I'm posting videos, posting to all my platforms. I'm in the trenches executing content. So I don't have time to break down film. I guess sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't have time to break down film during the day. So I have to wait till the end of the night. So I typically start my film breakdowns around like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night when I finally lay down. I pull up the laptop, throw on the all 22, and I remember watching Brock Purdy versus the Dolphins just freaking out. Like, I'm like, what is this? I couldn't, my head couldn't rationalize what I was watching because I was watching Mr. Irrelevant play better than I've ever seen Jimmy Garoppolo play in his very first game. I couldn't rationalize it. To me, it didn't make sense because I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, wait a second. I was like, just the week before heading into the Dolphins game, we were talking about this might be the best we've ever seen Jimmy Garoppolo play. This might be the best version of Jimmy we've ever seen. He's efficient. He's not turning the ball over. We're like, oh, I remember talking with the Ponte. I was like, are we having a top 10 Jimmy Garoppolo conversation because of just how well he was playing in that stretch leading up to getting hurt? And then I throw on the Dolphins tape and I'm like, I've never seen Jimmy do half this stuff. I've never seen Jimmy manipulate defenses with his eyes. That doesn't exist. And here we have a rookie getting thrown to the fire against the Dolphins. And mind you, the context of it was Mike McDaniel throwing zero blitz after zero blitz after zero blitz and getting home. He was winning. Mike McDaniel was winning the scheme battle. He was scheming up free rusher after free rusher after free rusher to the point where Mike McDaniel had to stop sending zero blitz. That to me was like, I was freaking out. I was like, dude, Purdy keeps beating zero blitz. They keep getting them. They keep catching the offensive line, shifting protection to the wrong side. They keep overloading the weak side and getting free rushers. They knew the calls. They knew the rules. It was crystal clear that the Dolphins, obviously led by Mike McDaniel, who's just the offensive coordinator the year prior, knew everything about what the 49ers offensive line rules were. And he was manipulating and taking advantage of it. And we watched a rookie quarterback just absolutely pick him apart. I was like, yeah, this is different. This is different. It was crazy. Wake up, honey. Here comes another Purdy dot. Bro, it was a magical, it was one of the most like fulfilling film breakdowns that I've ever done, because that's how much Brock Purdy impressed me. That's how advanced he showed, getting thrown to the fire as a rookie. And then what he stacked to be able to go start against Tom Brady and eviscerate Tom Brady against a quality defense. Arguably one of the best safeties in the world. I think at that time they still had a pretty, formidable defensive line, linebackers, Levante David, Dean, or whatever all the cornerbacks are that they had. They had a pretty solid defense. Brock Purdy put him in the wood chipper. And then Brock Purdy breaks his ribs against early. And I think it was the first play that Brock Purdy broke his rib against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And then on a short week goes to Seattle and wins the division at Seattle. Something that we had struggled to do, to win in Seattle for a long time. We obviously won in 2019. We had our moments, but dude, it was that 3-game run was crazy. And it was I was thinking about it. I was like, I got to witness the birth of Brock Purdy. I was at the Dolphins game. The Dolphins game was also, I don't think this is a coincidence at all. The Dolphins game was the first time that my feet touched Levi Stadium turf pregame. If you guys don't know, it's been a huge dream of mine to be able to capture content from the field for years, to the point where it was one of the main reasons why I even started this entire platform, is because I wanted to get content on the field. Literally, one of the driving foundational points of starting this brand was getting my 2 feet on the field where I can capture content. And the very first time after I started doing this, I really started doing this in 2017. The first game where my feet touch Levi's Stadium grass to be able to capture pregame content was the Miami Dolphins game. No coincidence. It was meant to be. The stars aligned. It was a magical, magical experience. And to be honest, man, to be able to experience, to be in the stadium against Tampa, to hear the very first Purdy chants just organically ring out in Levi's. And then I traveled. It was my first away game. My first away game ever was to Seattle to watch Brock Purdy defeat the Seattle Seahawks with broken ribs. With broken ribs. I showed up pregame to get my pregame content in Seattle, and there's no Purdy. I'm like, what? I was so confused. I was like, where is he? This was prior to when they come out in their pads. And they go through their whole warm-up routine. They do their stretching lines, and then they, start throwing the ball around. They start, working the arm out. No Purdy. It was Josh Johnson. And I'm like, dude, where's Purdy? Come to find out, Purdy goes out in warm-ups, and they have to inject him with a painkiller in his broken rib so that he could play in this game, because in that pregame warm-up, he couldn't throw beyond 15 yards without being in excruciating pain. So, I mean, dude, the whole start of the Brock Purdy situation gave me a ton of confidence. That's the whole question. That's how we got started on this conversation, was basically saying, was I worried when I found out Purdy came in for Jimmy? Initially, yeah. But until I watched the tape, every single stitch of worry that I had evaporated. And I was like, you know what? I think we might be in better shape. Obviously, we have to be able to determine that Purdy can duplicate this performance, and that's exactly what he did. He just was consistently played well through the playoffs, literally, unbelievable year honestly couldn't have scripted it any better. Well, let me say that you could have, you absolutely could have scripted it better if you like happy endings. But if you like the drama and you like, the jarring twists and turns at the end of the flick, then you got a good story as well. But it was so close to being one of the most insane finishes in all of sports. Super, super close. But yeah, man, it was a great time. I've got a lot of faith in Brock. I do. And you could see, I think my faith in Brock, in what I saw his first year, and then watching him, come back in training camp, I think it gave me a different level of perspective. I've studied every throw of Brock the year prior, and it was very clear that Brock was coming back from a severe injury, right? And you could tell he was working through that in training camp. So again, when you watch, like when I showed up on day 1 of training camp, do you know what my expectations were? Can Brock Purdy throw the football? That's all I wanted to know. That's where we started. Some people were evaluating him like he was supposed to be Joe Montana coming off a UCL surgery, and that's why you got some questionable reports coming out of training camp. For me, my baseline was, can he throw? Can he throw the football without his arm falling off? First day, check. He proved it. Didn't mean he was ultra accurate. Doesn't mean he was the same Brock Purdy that we had seen, but that's not what we were judging him off of. We were judging him off the reality of the situation, and the reality of the situation was he was coming off a severe injury on his throwing elbow. And you then build on top of that. And that's exactly what it was. You could see throughout the entirety of training camp, he was building, stacking, getting a little bit better, having a bad day, getting a little bit better, it's a process, man. And what made me feel confident in Brock last year was that even though starting at a low level, he was consistently moving up. And you could see that happen all the way throughout the year. So, we just found out from that Brett Coleman piece that Brock was rehabbing all the way through the end of November. So imagine what he could look like in a scenario where he's fully healthy all off season. Year 3, no competition. This is his team. He's the franchise. Questions have been answered. I'm excited for what Brock's going to do this year. I think Brock has the ability to stack even better than what he has done up until this point. So I've got high hopes for Mr. Brock Purdy. Not sure if you guys have seen that report that kind of is coming out. Apparently, Kyle Shanahan offered the defensive coordinator job to Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick turned it down. Oh, I don't think that's necessarily an indictment on anything about the 49ers, but I do find that interesting. And we talked about that. We're like, who's going to be who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Could it be Bill Belichick? Could it really be? Apparently, Kyle was interested. Kyle had an open door policy in the sense of potentially bringing in Bill Belichick. So That would have been interesting for sure. For sure. But I'm just excited, man. I'm excited to get back to breaking down the X's and O's, the Jimmies and the Joes, and just get back to talking ball, man. Let's go. This is the best time of the year, in my opinion, because regardless of what has happened in the past, everything is imaginable in front of you. Everything is fresh. Everything is new. The outcomes aren't determined. So it gives you a different sense of hope, gives you a different sense of just like vibes moving forward, understanding that we get to attack it again. We get to get after it. So like I said, I believe we'll have practice tomorrow. I'm not sure that it's open to anyone. I do think that we might have some press conferences tomorrow. Let me double check. I saw the 49ers schedule a bunch of future press conferences. I'm not seeing them at the moment, so we'll obviously know better tomorrow. But we'll be back at it again. Super excited about, man, just getting it back. I think we're all ready for some football. But again, as always, appreciate everyone tapping in with the channel. Appreciate everybody watching the videos, liking the videos, commenting the videos, sharing the videos. It all means the world to me. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Appreciate all the SDS that continue to tap in. And I'm excited. I'm excited to bring you my training camp reports. Exciting to bring you my evaluations. And really just get after it. So grab your cookies on the way out. I appreciate everyone, like I just said, and we will be back getting after it tomorrow. Grab your cookies on the way out. Smash that like button. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.